You're very welcome back. This video I'm actually calling Before We Lose It Completely, and that's based on a night that I spent with the Special Olympics athletes from Dundee Down. I was invited along to a Special Olympics launch, if you want, last Wednesday night. It was run by Dundee Down County Council, and it was to, I suppose, celebrate the 79 athletes in Dundee Down who will be taking part this year, this summer, in the Special Olympics. And wow, was it, that was a very interesting experience for me. It stopped me in my tracks for a moment, maybe not for the reasons most people would think, because it made me think a little bit more about was I or am I in danger of losing something very valuable to me. When people think of sport, people think of high octane type stuff. You know, it's in GAA, it'll be All-Ireland finals, hurling, football, could be rugby, whatever the sports are. And there's really only one version, and it's elite, and you have this depiction of what elite looks like. They're all the poster footballers, the household names at intercounty level, hurling, football, or rugby. I'm not that well up on all the rugby side of things. I grew up with a hurl in my hand, and was quite handy with that. But it's not the only reason that people show up, and however, everybody who goes looking for sport is actually looking to compete and put themselves up against others and put themselves up against the top and to be the best, and they put in whatever effort and work needs to be put in to achieve the highest level possible. I've talked to you about this. I've got this process. I'm all about process. I'm all about structure, strategy. Mastery and craft is what I'm about. That's the path I've chosen. And this experience reminded me that there's actually a bigger picture. Special Olympics, to me, you go into that room, and I was sitting there and I was looking around. God, the energy that was in the room was phenomenal. It was high fives. I actually got more high fives in one night than I think I got in nearly 10 years. I had people who came up to me and told me all about their sport and what they loved about it, and I was actually one of them. Now I'm in the power wheelchair, and that's an interesting one too, because there are misconceptions about the sport. I have what I call head tilters, and when I'm talking about, what they'll say is, "Oh, I hear you've taken up shooting. Isn't that lovely for you?" And I'm thinking, yeah, I get where you're coming from, and it's not particularly. It's more like, sure, it's lovely to have a hobby sort of thing. Painting would nearly be the same, because God help us, there's no way that someone in a wheelchair could be really competing at a really high level, a level that far surpasses a lot of able-bodied, if you want, and I've been in both sides, so I can talk about it. What I found was an honesty in the room. I found passion in the room, which you find around athletes anyway, but I found a very honest passion. There was no guardedness. I had people who were, we'll say, a football team or a soccer team. My God, they were all open about what they were about, how they were going about it, the training they were doing, and there was no guardedness around ego, if you want. There were no egos in the room, because everybody was literally running in the one direction to be the best they possibly could. Very similar to myself. I want to be the best that I can possibly be, and I've surrounded myself very fortunately with people who also feel passionate about that. But when I see when I have some of the discussions, because I sit with one foot on each side, I love sport, just love sport. I love people who take part in sport. I love people who are passionate about taking part in sport. And then there are people who sit on the periphery and they look on, and to them there is the head tilt, even around the Special Olympics, and sure, isn't it lovely for them? Whatever that means, and I find that insulting, because I'm in that box myself of when I say I've been shooting, I've even had people go, but it's only 10 metres. I don't have a problem with that, by the way. The problem I have is how they start to prove then that I have an advantage by being in a wheelchair. It's an odd one. Again, it's down to sport. It's down to people's perception of sport. Unless you've got 2 green jackets, poor Rory, for example. I mean, you're not really the top of your game or whatever, even though these guys go out the same as everybody else to be the best that they can possibly be. I don't know anyone who's actually gone out to lose in sports. So I mean, to put yourself into a competition, I think that takes guts in the first place. But what I saw the other night, the energy, the honesty, passion, interest in what I was doing, interest in why I was there, what was I doing there. And I'm probably very lucky in lots of respects too. Apart from the fact that being in a wheelchair, by the way, opens doors for you people wouldn't have anticipated. I was always someone I found people would come and talk to about things for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. But being in the wheelchair, I was asked what sport I was in. I was saying shooting, and they were going, "Oh God, how do we get you?" And I'm going, "I don't know how you get into shooting because it's not one of the sports that Special Olympics actually have." But listen to them talking about how often they train, where they train, who their coaches are. I saw cheering or heard cheering. I saw high five, and I literally saw unbridled energy, unblocked charisma. Like they were fanatical about their sports, and so they should be. There was no judgments either. Everybody in that room is competing to be the best, but even though they wouldn't all come from the same club perhaps, they were all combined, they were all unified in one approach, and they're going to have a hell of a time this summer, which I'll be following as closely as I possibly can. I think it's because this got to me the most is because I've seen, as I said, I played in the county hurling, I've played numerous different sports, could pick up a golf club and do 86 without even trying, and then 2 years later come back and do it again. I'm not a golfer, it's not a sport I particularly enjoy. It's when you look at it though, the bigger picture, and you're going, the one thing that unifies us all is we're all trying to be the best that we possibly can be, and we like competition, and competition is good, but should never be replaced with the love and passion we have for the sport, I think. Because I know the mornings that I would have a challenge, and I don't have that many challenges getting up. I might sit on the edge of the bed at 5 and go, no, do you know what, I'll give it an extra 10, 15 minutes. And normally what happens to me there is I'll go, no, that's not really going to work because my competitor is not lying on the bed for extra 15 minutes. They're up, they're running, they're training, they're going to training now. And in a lot of ways, they've got facilities that are designed around them to make things easier, which I don't have. And that's not a moan. Actually, the reality is I love this sport. I will find a way to do what I need to do. You can't replace that energy. There's nothing, the energy I have for this sport, as all these athletes had, I could see we shared one thing, and that was a love of the sport and absolutely fanatically passionate about the sport that we're in. And I think that needs to be there. But they had a fun element to it, which, again, I haven't seen as much of in a long, long time. I call it unguarded passion because there tends to be a certain level of guarding around a sport. What I found with these athletes is there was no guards up, there was no one hiding their feelings, their emotions. They shared all their insights, how long they've been at the sport, what they love about it, who their heroes are in sport. Roy Keane being someone on the soccer team who seems to come up quite a lot. Good man, Roy. We shared performance goals. We want to perform at our best. We're not going out to lose, but not winning is a factor in sports. And we learn from the lack of successes. We won't call them failures because you only fail if you don't get back up again, in my opinion. Thinking that one model applies to everyone, and if that was the case, think about everybody who goes out. A sailing fleet that I went out in, for example, was I going to win that day? No. The day that this all happened, where I ended up in the wheelchair. But without everybody showing up, there's only need for, we'll say, five 5 people probably share the top 3 places regularly enough. So why is everybody else going out? Because if it's not for fun, it's not enjoyment, if it's not to try and be the best that we can possibly be, to put ourselves up against others, that's what it's about. That's what these athletes taught me. They're going up against everybody the same way as we are in shooting, the same way we did when I was playing hurling, or if I was playing golf. I was out there to be the best that I could possibly be. Some days that fitted into the first position and some days it didn't. But it didn't mean I wasn't always trying, the very same as these athletes. If you want to get fun out of winning, I think you're in for quite a miserable sporting existence. I felt at home around these athletes because there weren't the same blockages, again, head tilters. They're part of what happens now. A funny one, a friend of mine, we would have been out for a walk along the pier, the local pier here in Dunleary, and a lady came over and would start talking to my friend about the guy in the wheelchair and isn't it great he's getting out and stuff like that. And after about 10-15 minutes of this direct talk between the two of them, my friend goes, "You do know he can talk for himself." And this is the thing, is just because I'm perceived as having this disability, therefore I'm not capable of doing anything. And that blockage wasn't there with any of these athletes the other day. I had people, I won't call it pulling hot, there was people coming up and grabbing the wheelchair and talking straight into my face, and then the high five started and stuff. Like, there were absolutely no boundaries around it because I was accepted. And I was accepted as we're in sport. We're not all in the wheelchair. So we found common ground based on sport, based on the fact that we all want to compete at the top level that we can possibly compete at against the best, to be considered the best, if that makes sense. There's enjoyment, there's fun. That's why we keep going back on the rainy days, on the wet days, cold days, the warm days, the days where we're not feeling it, the days where we've had a bad training session, it hasn't gone the way we wanted, or the days we've had a bad competition and it hasn't gone the way we wanted, and we keep going back. So there has to be something deeper than winning, has to be, and there is. I would say I'm pursuing mastery still, but with the roots that I have, the roots of, I want to master this sport, master this craft, if you want. That's why I get up every day. The results are coming. The numbers are coming. It's a no-brainer on that one. But every day I get up, I learn something new about it because I'm passionate about it, the same way the athletes down in the launch for the Special Olympics. They're passionate about what they do. They're honest with themselves about what they do and why they do it. There's a discipline. I mean, I said it before, for me, discipline is far more important than motivation. Because motivation, January 1, everyone's motivated to go and join a gym. Week 2, half of them are gone. By the end of the month, there's 5 out of 100 still going. Why? Because other motivating factors came into play that took them away. So you'd have to just sort of say, be very careful, or I'm very careful about the fact that I don't want to lose what makes this sport so enjoyable, so lovable, so it makes me so passionate about it. I want to compete at the top level, the highest level. I want to be up against the best in the world. I want the opportunity to do that. That's why I need to keep training the way I am, and the days that I lose some of the sight, if you want, of what the real target is, I'm going to look back at the night that I met these wonderful athletes below in Dunleary and listen to them tell me about their stories, and maybe surround myself in my own head with them. Because sometimes I'll be explaining to somebody about the sport, and you'll realise they're not with you in the discussion at all. They're not interested. That's the thing, actually, is they're not interested. They're literally putting up with me talking about something that I'm passionate about. Whereas when I was with these athletes the other night, we were all passionate about what we were passionate about, and we were all listening to each other talking about why we do things and what it is we do and our goals and the dreams. I was around like-minded athletes. It was like, you know, the word refreshing doesn't do it. It was something that lit a spark in me again, made me smile. It was literally like, I don't know if you've ever been around it, but I did a lot of training with juveniles, real juveniles. I love the kids aspect, so we'll talk about maybe the up to 6-year-olds even, maybe 6, where there's no boundaries at all. So if you've ever been watching them, there'll be 10 on each side, and everywhere the ball goes, everyone runs after the ball. There's no one stands in a position. It's boys and girls, and they're all running around after the ball, and you'll hear the laugh down the throat, like really deep laugh, the real laughing. Those are the type of things. The days that I'll struggle, I'll get back to the basics, and I'll think of those days watching kids laughing. As I kid myself at one stage, I remember how much fun sport was. And listening to these athletes the other night, I heard how much fun it is. And there's nothing more important than the fun, because when all the fun goes out of it, you're left with, you know, a routine. It may not be as much, it may not be something you can stick with every day. So the bit of fun, it'll bring you back to the basics. It'll bring you back to why you start. It'll bring you back to why you get up every day. It does have fun in it. And yeah, it was, for me, it was massive to be surrounded by these people. Yeah, obviously wishing them the very best. I'll be following them this summer undoubtedly. Now that I have a few friends there that seem like they're going to follow me as well. So we've got mutual respect and mutual appreciation. So yeah, I'm looking forward to dropping by again. Thank you.